All right, ready to dive into something really fascinating.
Absolutely. Always up for a good deep dive.
So picture this, okay? Henry VIII's 6 wives,
Okay, got them.
but not as you usually think of them, like these sort of tragic figures.
Yeah.
Instead, imagine them as pop music icons, belting out their own stories on stage.
Ooh, that's a twist.
Right. It's wild, and it's not just some idea, it's Six, the musical.
I've heard of it.
Yeah. Well, it's taking history and flipping it, giving these women a chance to be front and center, like tell their side of things.
It's amazing how it takes figures who are often just footnotes and turns them into these powerful, like, pop stars. It's history, but with a modern spin.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to get into it, how it happened, how it became such a global phenomenon.
Sounds fun.
Oh, it is. And we're using a really insightful interview with the show's creators, Toby Marlow and Lucy Moss from the Noble Blood podcast.
Great source.
So their journey started as a student project at Cambridge, believe it or not.
Wow, from a university setting to a worldwide sensation.
I know, right? They even had to deal with the whole COVID-19 shutdown, but they persevered.
Yeah, talk about resilience.
Totally. But the big question is, how did they even think to turn Tudor history into this pop music extravaganza?
Well, they decided to give each queen her own song, and the cool part is they drew inspiration from modern pop divas, like think Beyoncé, Adele.
Oh, I see.
So it's like each queen is responding to centuries of history, but with, like, through the lens of pop music. Pretty clever.
It's so smart. Engages people, but also makes you think about how history gets presented. Yeah.
Totally. And they really did their homework, too. Went beyond the usual history books, dug into primary sources like lesser-known accounts to try and understand these women as people.
Yeah.
And the fascinating thing is they found sides to these queens that you don't see in, like, the typical historical portrayal.
I bet. So were there any queens they found, like, extra challenging to write for? Or maybe ones whose story really clicked with them?
They mentioned Anne of Cleves. Yeah, her song Get Down, it's all about her embracing life after Henry.
Right.
The verses about her, like, newfound freedom were easy, but the chorus, capturing her resilience, took a bit more work. But they got there. Showcased her strength and independence, which is often overlooked.
Yeah, you always hear about her being the wife he quickly cast aside. It's refreshing to see her portrayed as someone who thrived afterwards.
Totally. And Six really emphasizes that these women had lives beyond Henry, which is important. Speaking of challenging narratives, Catherine Howard's song, All You Want to Do, that one's particularly impactful, I think.
It is. It's really poignant how it tackles how she was, historically sexualized.
Exactly, and draws these parallels to how we view young female pop stars today.
Makes you think, for sure.
And Marlow and Moss were very conscious of that from the start, addressing historical wrongs, wanted to challenge those narratives head on.
So it wasn't just entertainment for them.
Oh, definitely not. There's a statement being made.
It makes you wonder, though, how did they balance historical accuracy with, the creative liberties you need for a musical? You can't just totally rewrite history.
Right, and they admitted to making some deliberate changes for the sake of the message.
Oh, like what?
Well, Anne Boleyn's song, Sorry, Not Sorry, they present her as less cunning than she's usually depicted.
So they're trying to, challenge the idea of her being a manipulator, maybe show a different side to her.
Seems like it. They suggest she was just living her life in history, well, misinterpreted things.
It's a great example of how Six encourages us to rethink those accepted narratives, explore different viewpoints, especially those that have been pushed aside.
Absolutely. It's about expanding our understanding, not just accepting what we've been told.
But has Six actually influenced how people engage with Tudor history, though? Like beyond the stage?
Based on what Marlow and Moss shared, it seems like it has. They've heard from teachers who say their students are suddenly fascinated by the Tudor period after seeing it. Yeah, and there are stories of people wanting to learn more about these women after seeing the show, like really diving deep.
That's incredible. It shows how entertainment can actually make you interested in history. Makes it more, I don't know, accessible, especially for younger generations.
Definitely. It's not just about memorizing dates and names anymore. It's about connecting with these figures as people, understanding their motivations, seeing them as complex individuals.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we've talked about the music and the historical stuff, but we can't forget the visual spectacle. Six is known for its dazzling costumes and staging. How did they bring that to life?
Well, they worked with a brilliant costume designer, Gabby Slade.
Oh yeah, I've heard of her.
She blended Tudor references with this modern flair. It's a fusion of history and pop culture, very visually striking.
I remember reading about a detail in Jane Seymour's dress, something about Tudor architecture.
That's right. Her dress is designed to resemble those Tudor houses, the ones with the exposed timber
Oh,
frames.
that's so clever.
It is. And even the chokers the beheaded queens wear, they're subtle nods to their portraits. The amount of thought they put into every detail is amazing.
It all adds layers of meaning.
Sure.
And let's not forget the all-female band.
The ladies in waiting.
Right. Such a powerful statement in itself. Was that always part of the plan?
Oh, absolutely. They were adamant about showcasing female musical talent, both to celebrate these musicians and to kind of address the underrepresentation of women in the music industry historically.
So cool, making a statement while also delivering a fantastic musical experience.
Exactly, hitting on multiple levels.
So did Marlow and Moss share any fun stories about meeting famous Six fans? I bet they've had some interesting encounters.
Oh, definitely. Marlow mentioned sitting next to Amy Sherman-Palladino, the creator of Gilmore Girls,
Shut up. No.
at a performance. And he was totally starstruck, couldn't resist eavesdropping on her reactions.
Was she wearing one of her signature hats? I can just picture it.
Apparently, she had on a velvet purple one.
Oh, that's so her. Okay, what about Moss? Any good celebrity run-ins?
Well, she was at a show with her cousin and just happened to glance over, and it was RuPaul.
Get out! RuPaul's a Six fan.
Apparently, he even got called up on stage at the end.
That must have been a moment for her. Any other, interactions with musicians or creators that stood out?
One that seemed special to them was Tim Minchin.
Oh, the comedian.
Yeah, and musician. They both admire him. He saw Six in Australia and emailed them praising their work.
It's got to feel good getting validation from someone you look up to.
Definitely. So, with all the success and praise, what do they hope people take away from Six at the end of the day?
That's a good question.
Beyond the entertainment, they want people to leave feeling empowered,
Yeah.
ready to, as they put it, smash the patriarchy. They want it to spark conversations, challenge norms, inspire audiences to make a difference.
It's not just about enjoying a show then, it's about engaging with, bigger ideas.
Absolutely. It's about history, about questioning assumptions, feeling inspired to create change, and having a blast while doing it. They emphasize that they want people to leave feeling like they've had a party. Because at its core, Six is a celebration of these women and their resilience.
It's a historical party with a message. Makes you wonder why history isn't always presented this way.
It really does. It challenges the traditional, often boring approach to history.
We've all sat through those history lessons that felt like lectures. But Six proves it doesn't have to be that way. It can be exciting, moving, make you think.
And it can spark a real desire to learn more, to go beyond the surface level, uncover those hidden stories.
Six is a gateway drug to history. Hooks you with the music, then leaves you wanting more.
That's a great way to put it.
But one thing that struck me about the interview was how open they were about their journey, the highs and lows of creating something so unique.
They did talk about those moments of doubt, like wondering if it would even connect with people.
And look at it now, a global phenomenon.
It speaks to their talent and vision, for sure. But even more impressive is how they handled the unexpected, like the Broadway opening getting postponed because of COVID.
Imagine that, your big moment, put on hold indefinitely.
It must have been crushing. But they stayed positive, focused, and eventually, Six made it to Broadway.
Talk about determination. They also mentioned making tweaks for American audiences, replacing some of the British slang. Any other changes they talked about?
It was mostly minor stuff, like referencing PBS instead of those British exams, the GCSE ones.
Oh, right.
But they were surprised by how little needed to change. The core themes resonated across the board.
It makes sense, that desire to reclaim your narrative, to challenge those who try to put you in a box. It's universal, crosses cultures and time.
Absolutely. And that's what makes Six so powerful. It's not just a history lesson. It's about empowerment, resilience, finding your voice.
Speaking of finding your voice, did they discuss why they moved away from the solo format for one song? The one about Hans Holbein, the painter who did those portraits for Henry.
Yeah, they initially planned for Holbein to be a bigger character with his own story. But as the show developed, they decided to streamline it, keep the focus on the queens.
Gotcha.
But they still wanted to incorporate his influence. His portraits played such a big role in how these women were seen, both by Henry and by history.
So the song acts as a bridge between the Queen's stories, highlighting the power of images and how they can be used to, like, manipulate perception. Adds another layer.
Exactly. And it also injects some humor and social commentary, like Holbein's song explores the pressures of beauty standards then and now.
Oh, interesting.
It's fascinating how some things just, like, stick around, even across centuries.
True. We've traded corsets for something else, but those societal expectations are still there. And 6 points that out, making history feel, I don't know, surprisingly relevant.
Mm-hmm.
So we've covered a lot, from the show's humble beginnings to its global impact. But I always love those behind-the-scenes tidbits. Any anecdotes that stuck out to you?
Oh, there was one. Remember they mentioned having contingency plans if cast members got sick?
Yeah, like having music stands on stage if someone couldn't dance. Smart.
Well, Marlow himself had to fill in for Catherine Parr on the West End once.
Are you serious? The writer of the show performing in it?
Yep, because they couldn't find a replacement.
Can you imagine the pressure?
He said he was incredibly nervous, especially with those powerful monologues.
And the comedic timing?
And he was up there with the professional cast who had been doing it for months.
Wow. Talk about stepping out of your comfort zone.
They even adapted a band costume for him, which, he joked, might have been a bit revealing for the front row.
I love that they just rolled with it.
It shows their camaraderie and sense of humor.
Totally. They clearly have a ton of respect for each other, and that positive energy comes through in the show itself.
Absolutely. It's like they're saying, we're going to reclaim this narrative, have fun, and everyone's invited.
And that's a message that resonates, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. So, after this deep dive, what really stands out to you? What are you thinking about now? For me, it's the reminder that history isn't just facts in a book.
Right.
It's stories, perspectives. It's constantly evolving as we find new information and, like, challenge old assumptions.
I couldn't agree more. 6 really exemplifies that, you know, how we can re-examine the past, give a voice to those who've been marginalized, and create something truly engaging while we're at it.
It really makes you think differently about how we, engage with history. 6 is proof that it doesn't have to be boring facts and dates.
Yeah.
It can be vibrant, exciting, a celebration, like real human stories behind those historical moments.
Totally. It's like they cracked the code, making history come alive for a new generation.
And it makes you wonder, what other historical figures deserve this treatment, this, like, pop-powered platform, whose stories are waiting to be told in a new way?
That's a great question. But before we go there, did Marlow and Moss talk about any challenges adapting 6 for different audiences? They mentioned those American tweaks, but were there other hurdles?
Well, they weren't sure the British humor would translate.
Right, humor can be tricky.
Yeah, they worried some jokes would get lost.
Makes sense. But they figured it out, obviously.
Oh, yeah. They found the show's themes, like female empowerment, that resonated everywhere. And the music, too, with its blend of pop, R&B, even a bit of hip-hop, it had global appeal.
Music is amazing like that. Did they talk about any specific moments or songs that connected with audiences in unexpected ways?
They were surprised by the response to Catherine Parr's song, I Don't Need Your Love.
Oh, yeah, that one's powerful.
Right. It's about strength and independence after heartbreak. And it seems to have resonated universally no matter people's background, even if they knew nothing about Tudor history.
Shows you that even in historical contexts, there are universal emotions. We all get it.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the technical side for a minute.
Okay.
They mentioned those swaps for American audiences, like slang. Were there any other interesting adaptations?
Funny you should ask. They told a story about a line in Anne Boleyn's song, Don't Lose Her Head. In the British version, there's a line, put your hands up if you're from the GCSE Massive.
Right, the exams. Wouldn't land with Americans.
Exactly. They changed it to, put your hands up for the PBS crew.
Clever.
Right. It keeps the spirit, but makes it relatable.
Shows how they adapted without, losing the core message.
Totally. Speaking of adaptations, staging 6 in different venues was tough.
How so?
Well, it was designed for a smaller, more intimate theater,
Oh.
but as it got more popular, they had to bring that energy to larger spaces.
Must have been complex. Did they change the staging or choreography?
They reimagined some of the blocking, the movement, so the queens were visible and the energy reached the back rows.
Makes sense.
Plus, lighting and sound adjustments to keep that immersive feel no matter the size.
A lot of thought goes into those technical aspects.
It does. It shows their commitment to making it accessible to everyone.
For sure. Did they have any, really impactful moments they share?
Oh, there's one that's quite touching. A young girl, maybe 8 or 9, approached them after a show and said 6 inspired her to learn more about history.
Oh, that's so sweet. to see that kind of impact.
It is. It speaks to the power of storytelling, how it can make things interesting that might seem dull otherwise.
Absolutely. Any fun mishaps during a show?
They told a story about a performance of Don't Lose Her Head. One of the backup dancers accidentally kicked her mic stand across the stage.
Oh, no.
Could have been a disaster, but the actress playing Anne Boleyn was amazing. Picked up the mic, kept singing, even made it seem like a comedy bit.
Wow. Quick thinking.
Right, shows how talented and adaptable they are.
Yeah.
And they talked about how creating Six wasn't always easy, challenges and setbacks along the way.
Hard to imagine with its success. What were some of the biggest obstacles?
Well, balancing historical accuracy and creative license was a big one. They wanted to honor the figures and events, but also make a show that's entertaining for today's audience.
Tough line to walk. How'd they do it?
They talked about their portrayal of Catherine Howard. They went for a more sympathetic approach.
That's interesting. Why?
They wanted to show her as a victim, not just promiscuous, Challenge the traditional narrative, give her a voice, even if it meant veering from the historical record a bit.
Bold. But it makes you rethink those assumptions.
Right, but let's be real. Six is a musical first.
Of course.
Did they talk about the challenge of writing catchy music that's also historically relevant? Like pop anthems that capture the nuances of Tudor history?
That can't be easy.
They said finding the right musical style for each queen was tricky. They wanted something both contemporary and authentic.
So did they use any traditional Tudor music?
They experimented with it early on,
Mhm.
but decided to go with a modern pop sound that would resonate more.
Smart.
Yeah, they felt forcing those older elements would feel off, detract from the energy.
It's about finding that sweet spot between historical inspiration and modern appeal. What about specific musical influences? Did they mention any?
Oh, a whole range, from Beyoncé and Ariana Grande to classic girl groups like the Supremes and Spice Girls, even contemporary composers like Lin-Manuel Miranda and Janine Tesori.
Eclectic mix.
Definitely.
It definitely comes through in the music. It's vibrant, energetic, captures the show's spirit.
And that energy's contagious. They wanted people to get up and dance. And they've succeeded, judging from the videos I've seen.
People dancing in the aisles, that's great.
It is, shows its power to uplift, inspire. But the music isn't just catchy, there's depth.
Right. How'd they do that?
They talked about using the music to tell each queen's story. Lyrics had to be witty and emotional,
To capture those complex lives.
Exactly. Each song serves the narrative, the emotional arc.
Sounds like Six is more than just a fun, catchy musical.
Definitely. There's so much thought put into it. The storytelling and character development, it becomes something bigger.
It's something special. Any really memorable performances or moments from the show's run?
They talked about a performance of Jane Seymour's Heart of Stone. The actress was really giving it her all emotionally.
Yeah.
And someone in the audience started singing along, softly at first, then louder and louder.
Oh, wow.
They said it was magical,
I bet.
like a pure connection through music.
That's what makes live theater so great, those unexpected moments.
You are special, and they stay with you. Speaking of lasting impressions, how did they hope Six would impact audiences beyond the entertainment? They wanted to empower women and girls, to challenge those historical narratives that have silenced women,
Yeah.
Create a space where those voices are celebrated, amplified.
It's a big goal.
It is. And they've achieved it. The show's popularity and the conversations it started, it's inspiring.
Six has become a platform, really, for female empowerment, historical representation, reclaiming one's narrative. Powerful stuff.
It is. And it reminds us that history isn't just facts and figures. It's stories, perspectives that can be reinterpreted, reimagined in ways that connect with us today.
Exactly. Six is a great example of how those reinterpretations can be entertaining and enlightening. It sparks new conversations and challenges us to reconsider what we thought we knew.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
But for all the serious topics it tackles, Six is still a really fun, high-energy show.
Oh, absolutely. They wanted people to dance, and they did. It's that blend of history, pop culture, pure entertainment that makes it so unique.
It's a special combination.
It is, and that's what's made it a global phenomenon, capturing all sorts of audiences.
But they also talked about keeping it fresh, engaging. How do you do that with a show like Six? With all the energy and pop sensibility. How do you keep it from getting stale?
They said they're always tweaking and refining it.
Oh, interesting.
Small changes to the choreography, lighting, even the costumes.
Fascinating how it evolves, even after so many performances.
They also talked about casting performers who bring their own energy, their own interpretations. They're not looking for copies of the originals. They want performers who make it their own.
Makes sense. It keeps things feeling fresh and spontaneous.
Exactly. That spontaneity, that sense of discovery, it's what makes Six so special.
Well, I think we've thoroughly explored Six, from its historical roots to its pop culture impact, and even those fun behind-the-scenes stories. Any final thoughts or insights from Marlow and Moss that stuck with you?
They talked about Six ultimately being about finding your voice, embracing your individuality, celebrating sisterhood. A powerful message, especially today.
It really is. And it transcends time and place. Reminds us that these historical figures, often just names in a book, were real women with their own stories, struggles, and triumphs.
And those stories still matter. They inspire us to challenge the narratives that try to define us and to embrace our own unique voices.
6 shows us that history isn't set in stone. It's a constantly evolving narrative, and we can all engage with it, question it, and add our own perspectives.
And sometimes the most unexpected things, like a pop musical about Henry VIII's wives, can lead to the most profound discoveries.
So true. I'm definitely feeling inspired to look at historical narratives differently, to seek out those untold stories.
And maybe even think about which historical figures deserve their own pop culture moment.
Now that's a thought-provoking idea. But for now, I think we've unpacked 6 pretty thoroughly. Hopefully our listeners have a new appreciation for history, storytelling, and the importance of questioning those narratives that try to box us in.
It's really been quite a journey exploring Six. Like, we've gone from its historical basis to the creative choices and even those fun little behind-the-scenes stories.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing how they've made it both super entertaining and something that makes you think. It's not just fluff. You walk away thinking about history differently.
Right. It shows us that history isn't just like a bunch of facts someone wrote down. It's tons of perspectives, interpretations, all woven together. And Six lets those voices that were kind of ignored or pushed aside finally be heard.
It's true. Even those figures we think we know, like Henry VIII's wives, they had so much more going on than we're usually told.
Yeah, and when those stories are finally told, it challenges everything we thought we knew, makes us see history in a new light.
It's so smart how they use music to do that. Like, music is a universal language. It doesn't matter where you're from, you feel it.
Exactly. It's powerful, and it brings history to life in a way that you just don't get from textbooks.
It's like they took these, I don't know, almost dusty historical figures
Yeah.
and made them vibrant and relevant again.
They did. And you know what really struck me from that interview with Marlow and Moss? How much they emphasize joy and celebration.
Oh, yeah.
Like, even with the serious theme, Six is ultimately about uplifting and empowering.
Totally. It celebrates those women, how strong they were, how they wouldn't let Henry define them.
It's about taking back their stories, finding power in their shared experiences. And that resonates with people no matter who they are or what they know about Tudor history.
Because wanting to be in control of your own story, that's universal.
Exactly. It speaks to our desire for connection, for empowerment, for being able to define ourselves.
It makes you think, what other stories are hidden in history, just waiting for someone to tell them?
That's what's so cool about Six. It opens up all these possibilities. It makes you want to dig deeper, ask more questions, find those untold stories.
And to remember that history isn't just something that happened ages ago. It still impacts us today.
Totally. It's on us as individuals and as a society to learn from it, to help create a better world because of it.
Well, I think we did a great job, really getting into the heart of what makes Six so special. We talked about the history, the creative side, and what it means for audiences.
I think so too. Hopefully, our listeners now have a deeper understanding of storytelling, how important it is to question what we're told, and maybe they'll even be inspired to go find those hidden historical gems themselves.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe one of them will create the next Six, bringing a fresh perspective to some forgotten piece of history.
Now, that would be amazing. But until then, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep into those stories that make you go, wow, I never knew that.
And join us next time for another deep dive into something that'll make you think and leave you wanting to learn more. See you then.